quickly. Start a game and hope to... Here we go. Let's get this. Let's go for a d4 game. d4 knight f6. All right, c4. We're just going tried and true, baby. Knight c3. Will we see Nimzo? Certainly looks like it. Okay. Nimzo. Let me think. Which variation do we want to play against the Nimzo? Okay. Well, I'm going to go queen c2, which is a pretty common variation. I wonder if my opponent's going to castle or how much theory they know. There's so many moves you can play here as black, truly. But the main thing about queen c2 is when they take, you're trying to take back with the queen. You don't want to ruin your pawns. But obviously in doing so, you end up with positions where you're way down in development, you're not castled, you're trying to preserve this beautiful pawn structure and the bishop pair, but you're down a lot of time, and if black opens things up or takes advantage of the e4 square, which is often what the opening is all about, then things could get uncomfortable. Knight c6. Okay, well, attacking this pawn, I think for the most part, is going to get a very easy response. Knight f3. e3 is not a bad suggestion either, though. Because the plan now is just to force the bishop to take. Okay, knight f3. You attack the pawn, I'll defend the pawn. We can come to an agreement here. Yeah, 928. You thought you could sneak that by us, did you? Well, chess.com was down, and thank God we had Ya928 here to test if the Streamlabs still works. $50 donation from Ya928, and you're right. Yeah, it does appear to be going through. It does appear to be going through. The $50 amount seems to be working. But, there's some people out there that are probably wondering if song requests still work. And geez, I thought the $50 donation amount works, but it's really hit or miss whether $15 works as well. I guess we'll never know. D6. I think it's time for A3. I said this opening is all about getting that bishop. Let's do it. Thank you to Jason for the $50. Let's get a nice, slow victory here. Takes. We can pre-move that. Bishop A5 would just lose the bishop, so... Ya928, we also ran into abroad on our European tour. There's been a few people in the chat right now and just who have stopped by the stream today to say hi that we met in Europe. So special shout out to those individuals. Okay, knight e4. I was waiting for this move. So, the knight jumps to e4, hits the queen. Where do you guys think the most natural place to put the queen is? Because we do have some options, but I think there's a very clear answer. Okay, so Bob K said queen d2. Heavy Ballista says d2. Chess Ninja d1 says on my d. I'm concerned for you guys. I'm genuinely concerned, and you should all get checked. I'm gonna go to c2 because it's a safe square, but it also attacks the knight. But d3 is also a safe square that attacks the knight as well. And you can make an argument that maybe it blocks the bishop a little bit. But the main thing is that a queen diagonal from a knight with one square in between them is always the best possible place the queen could be, because the knight takes the most amount of moves to reposition itself to attack the queen of any square. So if the knight wanted to attack the queen, it'd have to be some like 3 moves. The queen is just really well placed here because it's not going to be bothered by this piece anymore. So, if I play knight e5, black's queen does well on c7, just naturally. That's just how the pieces operate. If I play knight g5, the queen is nice on e7. If I have a knight on d2, queen might be nice on f4. If I play knight d4, then queen f6 is just a good square. And you'll see these things pop up in your games because this is just a general concept in every opening. It doesn't mean you always go and put it there, but it's just it's an interaction between those two pieces, which is almost always true. So in this case, when the queen was attacked, it's like, yeah, I have a lot of options, but I just know that the queen does well. Diagonal from the knight with one square in the middle, so I just naturally kind of put it there. More often than not, it'll be a good move. Here, I'm not that interested in taking because it seems like it just lets the bishop out for no reason. Bishop to f4 and e3 is definitely attractive. The only thing that's dissuading me is bishop f4, g5. Hyper aggressive, but with g4 coming and this pawn loose, I think this is a real consideration. So we're gonna calm down and just play e3. The reason e3 is nice as well is bishop d3 is a great follow-up, and this bishop has a great future on b2 as well. So no worries there. And no, Omer, we would not want to play c5 here as white. It's an option, but I'd want to hold that in reserve. Right now, black can't take, so there's no need to rush. But in general, you don't want to close the position. We have the 2 bishops. No need to rush with that. Okay, bishop d3 is a very easy and obvious next move. Threatens the knight, develops a piece, wants us to get castled, all that good stuff. Yeah, so f5, of course, he wants to anchor the knight in there, and as he should. If I take, pawn's going to take back. I think now what I'm interested in is b4. Maybe b5 to kick the knight away, and then I earn the e5 square for myself. So before I castle, which is not a bad move, I just think I'd rather do this, not to give him all the information. Like if I castle, I don't know, he might go crazy. g5, g4. Whereas if I don't castle and he plays the same g5, g4, it's not nearly as scary. Let's go here. b5, I'm interested in. Bishop here. So far, so good for my opponent, but big decision now because his bishop is really bad. He's anchored this knight, but he also played d6 and then d5. So he's invested some time here. a6 is not bad. He wants to make sure he's catching b5. b5 takes, right? That actually looks like it works out for him. So I understand a6. If I go b5 and he takes it, I think I take back, and it's extremely good for me because the knight has to move, and then my knight goes here. That feels pretty strong. If I go here and he takes there, that's where we have some choices. Takes, takes. I feel like I'm doing too much with my king still in the middle. You know, especially because after he takes here, I'm also noticing knight b4 is an option. So, as usual, just have to temper things and play the slow move. Develop the piece, guard the rook, do all the good small things first. We're looking at b5 in the future here. Keep in mind, taking a knight e5 is still okay because takes, we have a potential protected pass pawn there. That'll be good on its own. The face, you should be able to find it with a pretty easy Google. Berlin, hot air balloon, Thomas Lazara. It's a good set. Okay. Again, another very logical move. So, now comes the question. If b5 and he takes here, I take here, takes, takes, takes. We're going to be up a pawn there. Sorry, a piece. We're going to be up a piece there. So I don't think he can capture this. And if he can't capture that, he's going to have to move the knight. So he only has a few options there. 97. Or takes 97, but I think that's worse. We could take on a6. Overall, I think that's good because we're about to play 95 there. So I'm a big supporter of the b5 move. Additionally, taking in 95 would be just fine, but I'm going to say that b5 is good here. Thanks again, JC Digital Girl. 3 gifted subs. That's very kind. Appreciate you. It's good to be back. Another JC in the chat. Got a few of you today. So, important decision for him, but I do not think this one is playable. Okay, takes. I'm probably the most happy with this situation because we have a nice solid structure. Our pawn's defended. Our knight is about to hop into a fantastic square. And the reason I'm so happy about this move is because I am intending to follow it up with f3. f3 to try to boot this knight out. I'm not interested in taking it. Okay. I think f3 is on the cards. f3, probably the knight's going to go back, and then I think it's time to castle. The only thing I need to do, though, is shore up this pawn. So the question is, do I play f3 and then a4? My king's still in the middle there, and something just feels wrong about that. Or if I castle first, then, I don't know, knight d6, we can go there, and I'm about to play f3. So I think that looks pretty good. And rook to c1. One of these rooks will be a nice move coming up as well. Hitting this pawn, and then a4 also intends maybe bishop a3. f3 is right around the corner. Okay, f3 now gets to take, which I don't think I want to allow. Not super interested in. I think I'm going to take this. f3 next. Rook c1 also kind of a nice looking move. Yeah, almost certainly f3 now. Knight back, and then a4. We have the two bishops. We have the c file. Start with this. I definitely expect the knight to go there. Although it's true the knight f6 could be played. I think this one is better. Watches some more important squares. I almost certainly need to play a4 because bishop a3 looks pretty nice. We have the bishops, but we still need to use them properly. I like this as a preliminary move, getting this. I'm actually not sure which rook I want to put there, which is why I'm not doing it just yet. But at any point, if I want to make a threat, I can attack this pawn with rook c1. Does look good. This is a good game. I feel like I'm a little bit better, but not by any like immeasurable margin. Definitely, this bishop is not great. Bishop pair versus knight and bishop. Outside pass pawn, maybe a target on c7. Weak dark squares, but I'm not up any material. Let's be clear. So it's going to be to extract the advantage, you have to work a little bit harder than that. Bishop on b2 is the one that we need to improve, though. I'm not exactly proud of that. Okay, now that I see the queen's not going there, I'm reassured slightly in the sense I don't feel like I don't feel like there's any aggressive things I need to worry about anymore. Okay, I like this rook here because I feel like it can help push this pawn. And if I move this rook, my queen is stuck on that pawn. So maybe I'm not even threatening to win that. So I'm definitely going to use this one to make that threat. I think one of these two moves is going to happen. I guess it could be this. Black needs to go for some counterplay. Where do I think the counterplay is coming from? Probably this move right here. I know it looks weird hanging a pawn, but at some point that move will mess up the position enough that it's worth playing. But I'm happy to see that. That means he's, yeah, again, there's just nothing going on over here. So we're really focusing on one side of the board, which just makes things easier to calculate, I guess. Okay, and bishop a3 definitely comes to mind here. I think bishop a3. Now one trade which I'm always trying to see whether or not it's the right moment to do so is bishop for knight, because the result would be these two bishops on the board, and for example, his pawns are not set up for that bishop to be successful. So I am on the lookout, for example, c6, which looks extremely natural. I am on the lookout for bishop takes knight here, and that's what I'm going to be considering right now. Okay, bishop takes, queen takes. I mean, queen c5. Doesn't look too impressive. So queen c5 right away. Might be more in the style. think I want to go b6 and push the pawns like that. Taking, the rook's going to take, the knight's going to go to c4. That's not really what I'm after. So I think we're going to go for this. So if I can, I'd like to take now and then go queen c5. Basically, in some endgame where I play a5, a6, like the pawns are going to crash through and we're going to win. The bishop on g6 is remarkably poor at the moment based on the pawn structure. And moves like rook a5 can be just kicked away with bishop b4. a6 can't be used. And I mentioned this before, but the move f4 it really is a bunch of counterplay. In a lot of cases, it's losing a pawn, but it's the type of move that I would consider as black because I'm just being squeezed with no idea where my counterplay is. And at least if I get f4, I can dream of positions where the bishops get traded and I get a knight to c4 or something, maybe even at the cost of a pawn. So I would probably be looking for a move like that a lot more than I'd be looking to just play h6 or something, you know? Okay, queen d8. Technically not making a threat because the knight is hanging. However, I still think I can proceed the way I want to here, which is takes and queen c5. So yeah, without looking back, we're going to do it. Again, this is the best possible situation. Queen c5 takes, rook takes, and then I'm going to get a5, a6. That should be enough to win. Like, that's a winning plan. So I don't think he can trade. And my rook's now guarding the pawn. a5, a6 is the plan. And queen d8 is probably the only move to keep the queens on the board. But I would never have wanted to trade this bishop for the knight. Because then it would be opposite bishops left over. That's not what I want. a5, a6. Now these pawn moves are kind of irrelevant. This is about to happen over there. Now, I can't really tell if he blundered that. It's been possible all game. I'm obviously covering it. There is some kind of idea where he just guards this and like blockades that, but I guess this is just a blunder. I think this is a b7 move. Yeah, b7 here, rook b1. If f4, we can even take on c6. Bishop e8. I think rook a5, rook a6, and rook a8. f4, rook c6 is important, and yeah, bishop e8, then rook a5, rook a6, rook a8. And yeah, that move, rook a6, will end the game pretty much immediately. But I was about to play a5, a6, and I truly didn't see an answer for him there. So I think he was lost. At least when he blundered big time, I think he was lost. So he can feel a little bit better about that. And in case you guys are curious, like, white holds a very decent advantage here. But what I will say is that in this position, it's not immeasurable. And I want, this is like a good lesson on maybe counterattacking. Because, for example, here, one of the absolute best moves in the position is f4. f4. And it looks crazy because you're just losing a pawn. Okay, but there's some ideas. Number one, you can just take and have a great square for your knight and be down a pawn, but with much more compensation and easy play. Or you can go ultra aggressive for like rook h6 stuff. But the point is that move makes your position flow as black. Okay, so he goes queen d7, I go here. Again, guess what a great move for black is? f4 again. He goes here, bishop a3. Okay, f4 is probably not that great right here. He goes c6, I go b6. Guess what the best move for black is? I was even saying it. Even though f4 loses material, I would do it. I would do it. Okay, because guess what? Our knight gets the c4 square. Now, this is still great for white, but this is just a lesson on, if your position, you're going to get squeezed and lose slowly, you have to, at some point, play the move that gives you some semblance of counterplay. So I was mentioning f4 the entire game. He never played it. So we took, and we play queen c5. Now, again, just to drive the point home, f4 in the final moment would have still been playable. Now imagine I take the bishop. Takes, and let's say we take the pawn. Here, black plays rook a6. Okay, let's say we play a5 to defend it. Black plays rook here, and it's this weird position where rook takes b6 is kind of a threat. We move the rook, then rook a5. But what I will say is that even if you don't see that idea, I would play this position even like this. Bring the king here, and yes, you're down material, but guess what? You have a real chance here in a rook endgame. It's still tough for white to break through. I have to guard this pawn the whole game. And the point is I don't have a bishop there for me to play a6. So it's miles different from this position, whereas if you do, I don't know, this or something, you're just going to get killed. a5, a6 is going to happen. You can't stop it. You're dead. So this is what I'm saying. When you can kind of see the end in sight, like you just have no defense to this. This is where this move is screaming to be played. You need to come up with some counterplay. And f4 was the counterplay that was screaming for probably 10 moves in a row. Ever since here, I would say, f4 was a very decent move. This is move 18. And f4 for a lot of this game was strong. And obviously he blundered here, but point being, if he never played f4 or if he never decided to play it, he was always going to lose slowly. So it's not that you're supposed to be able to calculate that f4, oh yeah, it's enough compensation. Yeah, I see that. You don't even have to do that. But it's more that if you see you have absolutely no defense to somebody's like threats and you're just going to lose slowly, like look at this bishop. It's doing absolutely nothing. It's awful, awful piece. If you don't give it some room to breathe, you're going to lose the game anyway. f4 is the last move on earth that myself, the guy playing the white pieces, wants to see. So don't be buddies with your opponent. Play the move they don't want to see. Imagine you guys were playing with the white pieces. You would love for your opponent to just like shuffle the pieces and do absolutely nothing while you slowly built up this beautiful win. You would hate if your opponent played this and made things messy. Even though you win a pawn, it's like not really the game you want to play. So play the moves that you yourself would hate to see. Good players will look for counterplay. Like, imagine that I was playing Hikaru or Ali Reza or Danya. Like, these guys would be churning out f4 probably like every single move here. Every single move. Just because they understand, like, okay, if you play slowly and don't ever make any pushes, you're just going to get crushed. Like, two bishops, outside pass pawn, you're going to lose slowly. So they're going to look for counterplay, and strong players are just good at identifying what those moves that even if they look bad, you just must play them because you have to have some chance. The engine is never going to recommend this stuff because sometimes the engine does, and then you know you really should have played it. But oftentimes the engine will be like, oh no, just sit there, shuffle around. But those positions are always going to be lost. Humans need to have something to do. You can't just sit there, do nothing. It's very rare that that defense works. So humans need to have something to do, some counterplay. And conversely, with the white pieces, the last thing I want to see is somebody actively trying to make the position messy. I want to see them. I want to see them defend like an engine and just like go back here and shuffle. What would Danya do? F4. I promise you. Promise you.